What's up guys, Chris here, back with the new APS CAM870 video. This one is not sponsored by APS, however there are some parts on this rifle that are sponsored by APS. So we have the tin-coated steel shell lifter, or what's it called? Yeah, let's just call it a shell lifter. And then I also have on here the previously installed tin-coated steel magazine tube cradle arms. And there's only really 2 items left to upgrade in this rifle. This video is going to be installation of the tin-coated steel enhanced sear for the trigger plate or trigger group. And the last thing that I'm gonna get and upgrade in this is a tin coated firing pin. That's a little bit more durable material. So to install the sear, we're gonna have to take out the trigger plate or trigger group, and you get that out by punching out these 2 pins, hence the punch and the hammer. So I'll start off by doing that. Not gonna, well, I can do it on camera, that's fine. What I like to do is start off by racking the action, make sure the trigger safety is engaged, and let's see if I can maneuver this here. The rear pin comes out easily, most easily left to right, and this one either way, doesn't really matter. And the reason being, there is only 1 pin retention clip holding the rear pin in place, but the front one has 2, so these shouldn't be very difficult. Slides out like so. Oh, I'm hitting all kinds of stuff here. Let's see. I'm not really, my workspace is not really suited for full-length rifles. There we go. There we go. Both of the pins are out. And now we can go ahead and lift the trigger plate or trigger group assembly up, tilt it slightly to the right, and it comes out like that. So I'm going to put the rifle to the side for now. And what we have to get at in here is this silver part right here, which is the sear. So when you pull the trigger, make sure you hold a finger on top of the hammer so you don't accidentally snap it. But take a look here what happens when I pull the trigger. I'm going to depress the hammer a little bit. I pull the trigger, the sear moves back and releases the trigger forward. So you can leave the trigger forward for this. Make sure this forwardmost pin is securely in place, because otherwise your hammer plunger and spring might slip off of this little detent here and go flying. Just for the hell of it, I'm going to put it back on safe. Not really necessary. So to get the sear out, we are going to have to take out the sear spring. I like to just, let's see if we can do this here. Oh, that's jammed up against the post. All right, the spring had gotten jammed on the seating nub here on the sear, but what I normally just do is with my fingers pry it off and lift it out. And the trigger bar here is blocking the sear pin. Let me zoom in a little bit actually. The trigger bar right here is blocking the sear pin from coming out, which is behind here. So we're gonna have to poke out the trigger as well. That came out rather easily. poke out the pin. Let's see. And then we're just going to lift the trigger straight up and out like that. And at this point, if you're lucky, you can tilt the trigger group to the side and possibly tap this pin out. The problem is I have grease on here, so it's not coming out. And what we need to do then is there's a little well, it's not visible now because this plunger is covering it, but behind there is a tiny hole, like a quarter of the pinhole, where you can go in and poke the pin out. I'm gonna try and do this without taking anything more apart, without hurting myself. Wow, that's under a lot of pressure. Okay, nope, we're not gonna do it that way. We're gonna have to take the shell lifter off. And to do that, by the way, be very careful of this right here. This spring and that edge. I cut up my thumb earlier today doing this, so be aware, and also try to keep an eye on this plunger right here, because like I said, if that goes flying like in your eye or just somewhere else, it's bad. So we're going to pry off this spring clip right here. Sorry I missed it, zoomed in a little bit too much. And what that allows us to do is push this pin out the other side, like so. And to get the shell lifter off, you just push this down and it's going to want to sort of pop off by itself. Remove the plunger and spring, and let's see if we can, right in there. Can you see that tiny gray piece? We want to poke on that. Actually, I need something even smaller to reach it. So let's go ahead and get a very tiny flathead. And we're going to poke it. And you can see the sear pin is coming out here. I'm going to use a pair of pliers to, it's not tight or anything, but I just don't want it going back in. So pull that out. The sear drops free. Comes out like this. Now let's do a quick comparison here between the two sears. So obviously the left one is the original, and the right one is the enhanced tin-coated steel one. So you can see that the profiles are a little bit different. They've removed some material back here to make the hook and the curve a little bit bigger. And there are some differences down here and some here as well. So this is supposed to engage better with the hammer and release better. We shall see. So to install the sear, first I'm gonna put a little bit of grease on it, just to, not on the actual hook though. I'm gonna avoid this area right here, but pretty much this side, and a little bit in the hole. Okay, so I have the sear lubed up. We're going to insert it in this orientation, right into the trigger group thingy. And at this point, you want to make sure it tilts rather a little bit more forward than backward, because otherwise it's not going to seat properly. So let's see if we can do this on camera. And right about there, I think. Then we're simply going to drop the sear pin back in place. Might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it in. There we go. And then we're going to, let me zoom out a little bit. This is getting hard to frame. Gonna put the plunger back here. Make sure it's started into the hole. Then we are going to get our shell lifter started over top like this. And this is difficult to do and keep it on camera, but basically pretty much like this. And we're gonna have to put a little force on it, force this hole into the right alignment. Get the correct pin helps. Get it started on that side. And we're gonna flip it over, and then we're gonna have to force the shell lifter in place until the pin can slide through. I'm just gonna give it a light tap, make sure it's all the way over. And you can see right here, there's a cutout for this spring clip to go. Let's see if I can prep that for you. So it goes on like that. And then you hook it on, just like that. Right, so now we want to get the trigger back in. Drops in like this. And you want to maneuver it so this arm comes around this tab and rests on top here. And we're going to put the rear pin blocker in place and align the trigger with the hole like so. And the only thing left now is reseating the sear spring. So you can see, whoop, oh god damn it, hang on a second. You can see we have two prongs or tabs, if you will, one here on the trigger and one here on the sear. So the spring goes from this end to this end to put pressure on. So let's have a look. Just like that. And so now when we pull the trigger, you're going to see that we take the safety off. Well, actually, the hammer needs to be cocked first. So we're going to do that, safety on. Cock the hammer. I'm gonna once again make sure that this pin, there we go, you can see it moved. And now, watch out for this frickin' spring here. So if I take it off safe now, and I pull the trigger, you can see the sear lifts out of place and it clears the hammer, releasing it forward. I'm thinking about doing a trigger job here because as you can see, the clearance is minimal. It just barely clears when you pull the trigger. So I prefer it if there was a little bit more room. But anyway, since it's under pressure, even if it's sticking a little bit, it's going to go once you get the sear far enough back. So, okay. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let me put the tools to the side. I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication in here, just for the heck of it. Right, so I'm ready to put this back into the receiver. Again, keeping the hammer cocked. and the safety on so it doesn't snap on your fingers. We're going to drop it in with a little bit of a right side tilt and then straighten it out and push it in. And then it's just a matter of aligning the pinholes and securing them. So let me do that off camera. Remember, the rear pin, when you install it back, you want to go left to right and right to left when you're taking it out. Right, so there we go. Now we have, you obviously can't see it, but when I pull the trigger, the hammer goes snap. So it's working. I've done a, god damn it, I've done a couple of mods here in a row now, and I've cycled some shells in between. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more thorough stress test, if you will. Cycle 50 shells or so, dry firing them. But I don't foresee any issues with that. So I'm not sure if I said it in the beginning or if it was the other video, but the only thing that I have left to upgrade this with is a tin firing pin that I'm gonna get for this. So that's gonna be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.